All right. And we're back with our fourth installment of CXplorers podcast with myself, Daniel, and my partner in crime, Jasper Nastor. How's it going, Jasper?
Pretty good, pretty good. Hello to all of our listeners.
Absolutely. So I know we've been talking about, the ethical and compliance pieces as related to Gen AI and some of the use cases. And then we talked a bit about how can generative AI and some of the platforms, such as like intelligent virtual assistants, chatbots, things of that nature, how are they being used right now, and how are they being enhanced for the overall customer experience? So, I think Jasper, I wanted to pick your brain today on some of the tools and platforms that fall under this, science of artificial intelligence, and specifically with IVA. So, maybe if you could kind of enlighten us in terms of what does IVA stand for, what is it really, and why is it important for us as consumers?
For sure, for sure. Would love to. So, IVA, it has been dubbed with multiple names. So, first things first, Intelligent Virtual Agent. I think that is it's actually what it's best known for. But depending on who you're talking to, some people would also call it IDA, Intelligent Digital Agents, and some would even call it call center voice assistant. So, all of those are actually just digital assistants powered by AI, large language model that actually allows users to interact within the native English language, right? So similar to how we usually use, voice assistants like for Apple Siri, right? Cortana for Microsoft and Amazon Alexa. So that's essentially the foundation of intelligent virtual agents within the contact center. So it uses, automated speech recognition for you to be able to talk to large language models, and from there, with the use of transcript, it goes through text to text input, similar to how we're talking to ChatGPT, where you just type everything. And once the large language model is able to process the queries that you're going to be giving it to, right, it then passes back the information over to speech to voice, essentially, that should be able to give you a seamless experience, when you're talking to IVAs, and just be able to throw out a lot of complex queries as opposed to, typical IVRs where everything is prompt based. You're only going to be able to go through very simple tasks. So IVA is definitely a huge step up in the game right now within the contact center landscape for AI.
So, what's the use case for IVA? Is it solely from a customer serving basis, or can it actually help the agents that are helping, that are sitting on the other end of the phone as well?
So right now, most of the use cases that we have been actually seeing, it's mostly customer facing. So if I think it was within episode one where we talked about the different models of AI, right? Whether or not it's a contact center of the future, agent of the future, or reporting of the future. So this one actually falls under the customer experience part, right? Because it's mostly going to be our customers who's going to be talking to this intelligent virtual agent, where they would have to, just essentially pick up the phone, not go through a long wait time, and be able to go through a lot of complex process just for them to be able to reach an agent. I mean, I think you and me both, Dan, we could agree when we're talking to customer support, you just immediately just press one, press one, press one, talk to an agent
Talk to an
as
agent.
yeah, as soon as you can, right? But with intelligent virtual agent, just the opening of the AI talking to the person, it's going to introduce itself, and it's going to ask you in a free form, human like language, like, how can I help you? Right. And from there, it's not going to ask you to like press one to do this, press two to do this, because you're going to be able to speak to it very freely. And from there, a lot of benefits from a contact center standpoint, more particularly with, call volume reduction, right? Because all the mundane tasks, all the even up to complex tasks, it can actually go through it right now. So, as compared to the typical chatbots in IVA, where everything is going to be programmed via dialogue flow, a lot of logic trees, a lot of logic decisioning that you have to do with the use of large language models with OpenAI right now. It can decipher, it can go through a lot of complex intent that you actually wanted to push through or to be able to cater to.
Yeah, I've noticed that some of those decision trees are getting a bit more effective because a lot of times I know when I would chat with my wireless telecommunications provider around like a billing issue, if I tried to activate roaming for a couple months, if I'm traveling, the frustration I ran into, I'm not sure if any of our listeners run into this as well when they're talking to like a chat bot, but it was like, I need to talk to an agent, right? And then it queries back, like, what can I help you with? So I'm like, home internet, mobile phone. And it keeps asking me these questions. And I kept writing talk to an agent until I got to a point where I was so frustrated that the query wasn't being answered that I was like, I would just pick an option that was available in hopes that maybe it would just connect me to a live agent on somewhere in the call center. And then hopefully I could at least get the runaround that way. I'm not sure if other people have done that, but I know in recent like weeks, I again reached out to the chatbot and I noticed a big substantial difference in the sense that it was like very open ended. Like, what are you looking to do? And I wrote down, listen, I'm moving houses. This is when I'm moving. I need to move my entire service over there, starting for that date. But I had questions in terms of booking an install date. Do I have to return any equipment? So it was a very long query that I had in one paragraph, and it was able to delineate, hey, you're doing a move. Let me connect with you someone on the moves team. They'll chat with you and then walk you through that. And then I think within 30 seconds, it connected me with a live agent on the chat, and they were able to answer and resolve everything very quickly. Um, I think this experience with like, how we've as customers adapted our habits and talking behaviors through the use of even virtual assistants like Alexa, Cortana. And I know Cortana is not really the the big buzz one, but I personally love Cortana because Halo and all of that. But for I've started to notice that the those chatbots have gotten much more complex in handling those decision trees so that I don't have to always reset the query and go right back to the beginning to ask a second question. I guess when we look at some of the tools that are used to help customers, so really the IVAs is the customer facing side. So, what would, I guess, real time agent assist be the equivalent kind of solution for the agent side that's actually taking these calls? So, what would be the main difference, I guess, in terms of really making sure that these virtual assistants or real time agent assistants are getting better, that they're improving, and they're ultimately delivering a better customer experience? I mean, it's great that they're driving efficiencies, and I know that that helps towards making a better experience as well. But in your eyes, what are some of the cool things that are happening both on the IVA and RTAA side, like real time agent assist, that you think are going to be really impactful in the coming months, even years?
Yeah, so I do feel that a lot will actually be starting to adopt this, right? So I have seen some noise about IVAs and RTAAs. I think it was second half of last year, where I went through a lot of product releases, press release, and a lot of meetings like online. Sorry, kind of spaced out there a little, but yeah, I have seen a lot of traction, and it's only going to become faster as we move forward with 2024, because it also eliminates, Dan, I know that you know the work that I do from a speech analytics standpoint, where it takes about 2 to 3 months for us to be able to train a model, right? Because it's all logic based, it's all dialogue flow based, and we have to go through a lot of speech analytics for us to be able to produce something that's going to be up to industry standards when we get those models out for operations to use. So with this new technology, definitely we're going to be able to eliminate that wait time for us to be able to put something out there that's going to be very effective from an operation standpoint, because it removes all that manual work, at least from IT standpoint and from a technical standpoint. Because as long as you have your data source, all your materials, all your OKBs, all your call flow, you just essentially have to plug it inside the large language model, and then it's going to do everything for you. As long as you can put it inside the large language model, everything is going to be a breeze, because LLM would essentially do everything for you, right? All those speech patterns, all those conversation design, all of those is actually eliminated now. And we all, I think, need to be in the forefront. Even speech analysts right now is somehow transitioning into the part where they're all becoming prompt engineers, right? And it's also the similar thing that we have been doing with quality analysts, right, within contact center, where we're elevating them to become interaction and speech analysts now. So yeah, that's my whole thought on that
So the
one, Dan.
next evolution of that interaction and speech analyst is really a prompt specialist.
Exactly, prompt engineer and
So
prompt
help me
specialist.
understand that concept a bit more. Like, what does that entail? Why is that important?
So right now, as we all know, with ChatGPT, it's text to text, right? And I think a lot of the people right now are using what we call a zero shot prompt. And when I say zero shot prompt, it's essentially a one liner approach where you ask ChatGPT, like, what's the weather today? Or can you give me a description of this? That's one shot prompt. Anyone can do that. But and for all of our listeners, through my LinkedIn, I have been posting some series about prompt engineering, a lot of tips and tricks for you to be able to elevate your interaction with LLMs, because there's a lot of ways that you can actually get an output out of LLMs, right? Like the basic one would be your desired output, right? You can tell ChatGPT or an LLM, like, give me this in a table format, right? In a table format, give me the difference between IVA and IVR. So things like that. You can also give LLMs a personality, right? Tell them that, hey, you're a product owner. Tell me what's the difference. So there's a lot of cool tips and tricks that you can actually do from a prompt engineering standpoint, and that's going to be the name of the game right now as we try to progress with this world of LLMs. I mean, it's just like a magic wand that's already out there in the wild that anyone can just harness.
And I think business leaders are starting to see that. A lot of the conversations that I've gotten into recently in the last, I'd say, like 3 weeks, with peers in the industry, is a lot of folks are being tasked with, hey, we see the wonders in this magic wand that everyone talks about with AI. I want this for our company. John, make this happen, and make this happen yesterday, right? And then so we start getting a lot of calls as a BPO in terms of, this is the mandate that our company has, and I need to get this thing going. And I know a lot of the folks that have been tasked to evaluate this, the challenge that I think everyone runs into is, it takes time to build the LLM. It takes time to do machine learning and to look at the decision trees and really train the AI. And time is a luxury that, for some reason, no company seems to have in terms of looking at that, right? And I think the many business leaders are at this kind of crossroads, in this fork in the road, in terms of, where do I go and what's kind of the first step to get this thing going? What data do I need to have available? What do engineers and developers need to build this out for us? Can you kind of help us and our listeners walk through kind of what needs to be that first base camp data and step that people need to have? And more importantly, I think it's also the objective, that they need to understand what they're trying to drive. So help us kind of walk through a multi-stage approach in terms of, if I were tasked with rolling out or enhancing our IVA system, or incorporating elements of generative AI into some of those interactions, how do I get started?
Yeah, for sure. I would love that. So, with all the research and all different podcasts and different website chats that I've actually joined, so there's actually one theme that every AI expert, every early adopters has been giving out to our industry leaders. So you're on point, Dan, right? You have a magic wand out there that can answer all your question. But I think I'm gonna go through a little bit of a reference here with Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. You have the answer, you just need to find the right question to ask. That's the first one, right? So imagine LLM can answer everything, all of the problems that you have within your contact center. Now, for you as someone who's assessing what solution to procure, you need to first understand, okay, what is that issue that I need to resolve? So may it be automation, right? So should I automate our pricing structure? Then you have to go through that. Then maybe no, yeah, because it's regulated, so definitely not. You can't automate that. So should I automate our customer service? So no, because most of it requires human touch. So as long as you go through that list, listing everything down that you want to actually target, and be able to think about it, in a way that whether or not you can touch it, or if there's any type of process adjustments that you can do from it. So 80% of the things that you have in your head won't actually be possible with AI, right? Not as long as you actually go through that list one by one and be able to deep dive through it one by one, whether or not it's something that you can actually touch with automation. Because a lot of the work still that we do in the contact center industry, especially for the customer service part, still requires a lot of human touch. And from an IVA standpoint, that's actually one of the things that I've noticed when we were actually assessing it a couple of months back, right? While it's very good when it comes to, I think you mentioned it earlier, Dan, right? Intent recognition and retention. What is actually missing is, the human touch, the human element of it, right? Because if you're going to be talking to an IVA, you're frustrated, you need someone to be able to talk to as soon as possible. Well, IVA can resolve your issue, but it removes that human connection that I think every human being still needs, right? For you to be able to kind of get some sympathy and empathy from someone that you're actually talking to. So I know that that's kind of long winded, but I hope that kind of makes sense to all of our listeners there.
So when you're working with some of your clients and kind of doing some of these integrations with it, do you typically have like an onboarding like questionnaire or template to really understand some of those questions and objectives? Because it goes back to the old adage, right? The quality of the answers that you get are going to be solely dictated by the quality of the questions you ask, right? So again, for those that might be entering this journey of enhancing certain elements of their customer service experience with AI based technology such as IVA or even real-time agent assist, do you kind of have a methodology that makes it seamless to kind of say, here's kind of what I need to be able to understand these objectives, here's kind of a template that we can fill out, and then what do we look at from a data requirement perspective? Like, do you guys make that simple in terms of integration? Because I think that's really where a lot of people are nervous about engaging, because they don't know left from right in terms of, do I need to have all of my data that I need to share right off the bat, or do I need to have all my questions? Who's doing the heavy lifting in terms of the machine learning and those elements? I think these are a lot of gray areas that I think would help a lot of our listeners, because it would help them enter a conversation with a company that does some of these solutions, even ourselves, to really kind of expedite and just really drive more intelligence in that conversation to set up successfully.
Yeah, and this is where that new role within the industry is actually where it comes to play, right? So with Contact Point 360, we do have our dedicated business transformation team. So that includes my team as the AI expert, and we also have our business insights and reporting team, right? So one of the first things that I usually do when a client, or even you, Dan, sometimes you approach me, hey Jasper, what can we do about this? The first question I ask is, was there any analysis? What's the rationale, right? Like, how did we come up that we need this type of solution, right? Because we can't just use AI as a primer paint and hope that it solves everything, right? So there has to be a solid and robust analytics as to why we concluded that, hey, this does require an improvement from a solution standpoint, and it doesn't have anything to do with either coaching, team managers effectivity when it comes to being able to follow through with the coaching sessions, right? So I need that data, because if I just give them a solution that, hey, this is going to solve everything, and no one's essentially going to be using it, but it doesn't kind of like bridge the gap of what the actual problem is, then that solution would essentially just go to waste. And believe me, Dan, I have seen a lot of clients actually procured different types of solutions, but at the end of the day, they were not able to actually get 100% of the benefit from it, because no one essentially understood it, right? And it was even not supposed to be there in the first place, because everyone was just excited. Everyone just wanted to kind of jump into the hype train. So it's important for you to have that business transformation model where someone can overlook into an account and be able to see it, from an analytics point of view, be able to hone into all the KPIs, all the data that you have, and be able to work with operations and just go through the very simple RCA process, right? Whether or not it's people driven, solution driven, tech driven, and so on.
I think you nailed it on the head. It's the analogy of, it's not just a primer paint and then you throw anything at it hoping it sticks. And again, I think in the first episode when we started this journey, we made it very clear that AI, artificial intelligence, it's a field of study within science, right? And I think when a lot of organizations are like, well, I need AI for my customer service experience to make it more enhanced, it's like saying I need biology to make things better. It's like, okay, well, what within this area of science is going to help that? And I think to your point, it's being able to identify what your objective is, because I think a lot of times people are thinking, well, there's a huge cost saving to be realized here, because I can now use machines which are much more effective, that can work 24/7, 365 at a much lower cost. But I think the reality that people need to understand as well is those cost savings don't get realized unless you do your generative AI, your intelligent virtual assistants properly. Because if not, it's actually going to cost you more because now you're allocating more resources to help train this model. You're now going backwards in terms of how do we adjust and kind of backtrack to all the things that didn't go well on this launch. And I think that's really where really having a specific understanding of what's the objective. It can't just be cost savings right off the bat because it's not going to do that. But if it is like we're trying to look at reducing costs in the long term, we're invested to really make sure we have resources to train the machines correctly, to specify our objectives and what it is we're trying to eliminate in terms of any waste within the contact center. And I think those are the ways that we need to really start thinking as organizations in terms of what specifically within this field of AI looks beneficial to you. Is it real-time agent assist? Are the agents, having challenges and friction when accessing their knowledge base and their training materials to offer speedy resolutions? Or is it on the customer facing side where it's my customers are running into a brick wall every time they ask a query and we have to keep starting from scratch? Right? And I think being able to start to really specify what elements within the AI platforms are going to be of value to drive and address the objectives and challenges that we face as organizations. And I think that makes it a lot easier for us to then say, okay, well, if these are the objectives, here's kind of the format that we work with in terms of stage one, let's get the data, let's do some analysis and really learn to understand it. B, then look at what's available within these umbrellas of technology to say, hey, we can probably adjust it with this. It'll take a much shorter time to, build this out than trying to climb Mount Everest in one shot, not knowing exactly which path to take. So I guess what are I want to see this in practice, right? Because I know that me and you do a lot of digging, and I know you've sent over some resources as well. What are some of the IVAs that you've seen to be a bit more effective than others? What are some examples in terms of exactly what made you feel them to be more effective tools versus your traditional chatbot on like a telco site?
So, yeah, I know we've been talking about IVAs for this whole episode now, but one of the things that actually got me excited when I see one of the demos from this one vendor would be the same experience, Dan, that you actually had with chatbot. The intent recognition first, and also the intent retention. Right, because with a lot of the decision trees right now, if you kind of throw out multiple queries and maybe go back to a query that you initially started with, it essentially goes to waste, right? It's not going to be able to pump out the result that you were initially looking for. So with these IVAs, you can be talking to them with different types of call types, essentially, right? You can talk to them about payment concern. You can talk to them about uh, information upgrade. You can talk to them about cancellation, and that's all without a hitch. And there was even this one vendor that actually did kind of showed off to me a little, where he was talking in pure English, and then just within a click he started talking, I think it was in German, and the IVA was able to immediately adjust to that. I was like, wow, that's so awesome. So you're able to actually converse through this IVA with different language. Right now it's not only going to be limited to English. So I know this one of this Fortune 500 company within the UK, they have already deployed IVA with 46 different languages, Dan. So they have been using this last year already. And another cool thing that also excites me with IVA is the ability for it to not only talk to you, but it also has the ability to send you emails and texts. It's also omni-channel. So there was this one instance where a customer was actually had to pay and fill up information. So instead of you having to kind of go through online and typing out numbers, it's going to essentially send you a format, right, via email that you just have to fill out, and it's all automatic. Right, there's no wait time. There's no like, I'm gonna put you on hold so I can send this over. I mean, just the whole efficiency of it, the whole the whole flow and the whole intuitiveness of the experience. It's just really really impeccable. Right, it's really amazing for me.
So I'm putting myself in the shoes of someone who's looking at a contact center customer service type of role. I may have just graduated from post secondary, looking for my first opportunity to get some office experience. Um, these technologies can be scary for folks kind of entering that world because essentially when we look at the big picture of what we're trying to also do from a business impact, is it could reduce the number of actual contact center agents that may be needed in the future. What are your thoughts on that? And if for our younger listeners or those that are kind of entering that field, what are some of these skills or learnings or education that I think will help them remain competitive and have an advantage, when applying for these types of roles to set them up for success when, IVAs really become more mature and integrated into the whole ecosystem?
Yeah, I mean first thing that pops into my head is really just that human touch, and I know that's kind of like broad in a sense that what do you mean about human touch, right? Any AI systems right now, all of the voice quality of these IVAs that I've listened to, it's nowhere near as good as how you and I, how actual human beings actually converse. Well, yes, it can resolve all your concerns, with just a few seconds, right? As opposed to talking to someone where it have to go through a lot of cognitive load inside their head just for them to be able to answer a query. But just having to talk to someone and being empathetic. That's the first thing, right? From a customer service standpoint, and also as simple as building rapport. These things right now, these IVAs, I have not seen any demos as of right now where it actually has that human touch, human element to it, which I think 80% of the customer service industry requires, right? So that's the first thing. As long as these IVAs can still or still doesn't know how to be able to connect with us, like how actual human does, I think, yeah, human agents are still definitely going to be there, and at the same time being able to handle more complex concerns, right? And when I say complex, right, a lot of these IVAs, they're still trying to figure out a lot of integration stuff with the tech stack that we're currently asking our agents to be able to utilize, right? And not all of them right now has APIs available for them to be able to kind of go through the tech stack. And yeah, so there's still an opportunity for IVAs to do better on that. So not until they kind of bridge that gap, definitely human agents are still going to be very much relevant within the contact center industry.
For sure. And I think it'll be some time before humans even feel comfortable interacting at that kind of level, on, hey, how are you doing? Right. I mean, if an AI asks me that, I know I just ignore the question, but I
And
do catch myself sometimes saying thank you to my Google Assistant. And again, it's just habit, right?
yeah,
So I'm hoping it gets to a point where it can become so much more natural. And I think with natural language processing, that's really the next technology I think we can talk about in episode 5 in terms of how that can be used to create a more human interaction. But I think to your point, right, it's not that humans can ever be removed from this equation, right? But it's more so keeping up with the times of how this technology is going to help me as a human deliver best in class experiences for the customers that I help and help me get to resolutions quicker. But I also, and I think we've seen this, both you and I, of what's happening now, is with the reduction of those menial tasks that AI can now handle, right? Building inquiries, tracking orders, things of that nature. A lot of the, I guess, interactions that hit the call center now are going to be much more complex issues
yeah,
that require that human touch, that require that investigative element in terms of really looking
exactly.
at different systems to understand where the gap might be. Right. And I think that's really important, for any of those that are in the kind of looking at careers to start, being an agent and maybe move to quality or other roles within that contact center or BPO space. So I think it'd be cool to really dive into subsequent episodes in terms of what are some courses or even some learnings that we can advise
Yeah,
some of our audience of, like, hey, this is something that might really pick up. And us as a company, we've even keeping an eye on people with this kind of skill set that could really be the future workforce of really driving those refinements needed in making the AI much more empathetic and much more seamlessly integrated with a human being as well.
for sure.
Great. Well, thanks, Jasper, for your time this week and for joining me on episode 4. Um, Looking forward to our talks on episode 5 as we kind of dive deeper into some natural language processing, as well as some of the skill sets people might need within the BPO or contact center space to really think about that future and how AI is going to be instrumental in shaping that as well, without leaving the human element behind.
As always, thank you so much too, Dan.
So, thanks, Jasper. Talk soon.